The ice cube technique is a simple sensory-based method that uses cold exposure to reset the nervous system by directly engaging the body's natural survival and regulation mechanisms. When cold is applied to the skin, specialized sensory receptors immediately send strong signals to the brain, alerting it to a sudden change in the environment. These signals travel faster and demand more attention than most internal thoughts, which means the brain temporarily shifts focus away from stress, anxiety, cravings, or emotional overload and redirects it toward the physical sensation. This rapid redirection is what creates the feeling of an instant reset. From a physiological perspective, cold exposure activates the autonomic nervous system, especially the pathways responsible for restoring balance after stress. In moments of emotional or mental overwhelm, the nervous system often becomes stuck in a heightened state of alert, commonly associated with increased heart rate, shallow breathing, and racing thoughts. The ice cube technique interrupts this pattern. The sudden cold acts as a controlled stressor that signals the body to regulate itself, encouraging a return toward calm and stability. One of the most important effects of this technique is its influence on the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest, recovery, and emotional regulation. As the cold sensation is felt, breathing naturally slows and deepens, the heart rate begins to settle, and muscle tension gradually decreases. These changes are not imagined. They are measurable bodily responses that help the brain recognize that it is safe to move out of a reactive state. This is why many people experience relief almost immediately, even on their first attempt. The simplicity of the ice cube technique is part of its effectiveness. It does not require long preparation, special training, or complex mental effort. By holding an ice cube in the hand or placing it against the neck, the individual creates a clear physical anchor to the present moment. This grounding effect pulls attention out of abstract worries or repetitive thoughts and back into direct bodily awareness. As awareness shifts, emotional intensity often drops, making it easier to think clearly and respond rather than react. Over time, repeated use of cold-based sensory grounding can strengthen emotional control and stress tolerance. The nervous system learns that it has reliable tools to return to balance, which reduces fear of intense emotions and increases confidence in self-regulation. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by internal states, the individual begins to recognize them as temporary signals that can be managed. Importantly, the ice cube technique does not numb emotions or suppress them. It creates a brief pause that allows emotions to settle naturally without escalating. This pause is often enough to prevent impulsive decisions, panic responses, or unhealthy coping behaviors. By working with the body rather than against it, the technique supports a healthier relationship between physical sensations, emotional experiences, and conscious thought. In essence, the ice cube technique demonstrates how small, intentional sensory inputs can have powerful effects on the nervous system. It shows that regulation does not always require force or complexity. Sometimes a moment of cold awareness is enough to remind the body how to return to balance, clarity, and calm. Cold stimulation activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which supports calm and mental clarity by signaling the body that it is time to slow down and rebalance after stress. The parasympathetic system is responsible for rest, digestion, recovery, and emotional regulation. Yet in modern life it is often overshadowed by constant stimulation, pressure, and mental overload. When cold is applied to the skin, the body interprets it as a meaningful physical signal, one that demands an organized and regulated response rather than panic or overreaction. As cold receptors in the skin are stimulated, nerve signals travel rapidly to the brainstem, an area that plays a key role in autonomic regulation. This process encourages a shift away from the stress-driven sympathetic response, which is associated with alertness, anxiety, and survival reactions. Instead, the body begins to engage parasympathetic pathways that slow the heart rate, deepen breathing, and reduce unnecessary muscle tension. These changes help the body conserve energy and restore internal balance. One of the key effects of parasympathetic activation is improved oxygen flow and more efficient breathing patterns. Cold stimulation often causes a brief, sharp awareness of the breath, followed by a natural tendency to breathe more slowly and deliberately. This rhythm sends additional calming signals back to the brain, reinforcing the sense of safety and control. As breathing stabilizes, the mind often becomes quieter, making it easier to think clearly and stay present. Mental clarity emerges because the brain is no longer overwhelmed by stress hormones and rapid-fire emotional signals. Cortisol and adrenaline levels begin to decrease as the parasympathetic system takes the lead. With fewer internal alarms firing, cognitive functions such as focus, decision-making, and emotional awareness improve. This is why many people report feeling grounded, clear-headed, and emotionally steady shortly after cold exposure, even if they were previously feeling scattered or anxious. Cold stimulation also supports parasympathetic activity through its influence on the vagus nerve, a major communication pathway between the brain and the body. When this nerve is engaged, it helps regulate mood, digestion, heart rhythm, and stress resilience. Gentle, brief cold exposure can enhance vagal tone, which is associated with greater emotional stability and a stronger ability to recover from stressful events. Over time, this can contribute to a calmer baseline state rather than only temporary relief. Another important aspect of parasympathetic activation is its effect on emotional regulation. When the nervous system is calm, emotions are processed more smoothly instead of being amplified or suppressed. Cold stimulation creates a window in which emotional intensity naturally decreases, allowing feelings to be observed without being overwhelming. This supports thoughtful responses rather than impulsive reactions, which is essential for mental clarity and healthy decision-making. The simplicity of cold stimulation makes it especially effective as a practical regulation tool. Because it works directly through the body, it does not rely on complex mental strategies that may be difficult to access during stress. The nervous system responds first, and the mind follows. This body-led calming process reinforces the idea that clarity does not always come from forcing the mind to be quiet, but from helping the body feel safe and regulated. In this way, cold stimulation acts as a bridge between physical sensation and mental calm. By activating the parasympathetic nervous system, it gently guides the body out of stress and into a state where clarity, balance, and calm can naturally return. The technique works by interrupting stress loops in the brain through physical sensation, creating a direct break in repetitive mental and emotional patterns that keep the nervous system in a state of tension. Stress loops form when the brain repeatedly cycles through the same thoughts, worries, or emotional reactions, reinforcing anxiety and maintaining elevated stress responses. Once this loop is active, the mind tends to feed itself, with each thought triggering physical tension and each bodily signal reinforcing the thought. Physical sensation provides a powerful way to disrupt this cycle. When a strong sensory input such as cold is introduced, the brain's attention system immediately shifts. Sensory signals from the skin travel rapidly through the nervous system and compete with internal thoughts for processing priority. Because the brain is wired to respond quickly to changes in the physical environment, especially those related to temperature or potential threat, it temporarily redirects focus away from abstract worries and toward the present moment sensation. This redirection weakens the ongoing stress loop by removing the mental fuel that keeps it running. From a neurological perspective, stress loops involve repeated activation of brain areas linked to threat detection and emotional memory. These areas become overactive when stress is prolonged, leading to heightened alertness, muscle tension, and emotional reactivity. Physical sensation interrupts this pattern by activating sensory and attentional networks that are not part of the stress loop. As these networks engage, the brain's stress-related circuits lose dominance, allowing the nervous system to recalibrate. The physical nature of the sensation is critical. Thoughts can often be argued with or suppressed, but the body responds automatically to sensory input. Cold sensation does not require belief, motivation, or effort, it simply registers. This makes the interruption more reliable than purely mental techniques, especially during moments of high emotional intensity when cognitive control is reduced. The body becomes the entry point for change, bypassing resistance in the mind. As attention settles on the sensation, the brain begins to receive new feedback from the body. breathing often slows, muscle tension decreases, and heart rhythm becomes more regular. These physiological changes send calming signals back to the brain, further weakening the stress loop. Instead of reinforcing anxiety, the body now reinforces regulation and stability. This feedback loop replaces the stress-driven cycle with a calmer, more controlled pattern. Interrupting stress loops also creates a pause between stimulus and reaction. In this pause, emotional intensity naturally drops, allowing clearer perception and improved judgment. The brain is no longer locked into automatic responses and can access higher cognitive functions such as reasoning and self-awareness. This is why people often report feeling more in control and less overwhelmed after engaging with a strong physical sensation like cold. Over time, repeated interruptions of stress loops can reshape how the brain responds to pressure. The nervous system learns that stress states are not permanent and that they can be shifted through simple, intentional actions. This reduces fear of intense emotions and increases confidence in one's ability to self-regulate. The brain becomes less likely to escalate stress automatically because it has experienced successful interruptions in the past. Ultimately, the power of this technique lies in its simplicity and reliability. By using physical sensation to interrupt stress loops, it restores the natural balance between body and mind. The brain is reminded to step out of repetitive stress patterns and return to the present moment, where calm and clarity are more accessible. It is commonly used to manage anxiety, cravings, emotional overwhelm, and mental fatigue because it works directly with the nervous system rather than relying only on willpower or complex mental strategies. In states of anxiety, the brain often becomes trapped in cycles of anticipation and fear, constantly scanning for threats and amplifying bodily sensations such as rapid heartbeat or shallow breathing. By introducing a strong physical sensation, attention is redirected away from anxious thoughts and toward the present moment. This shift helps calm the nervous system and reduces the intensity of anxious symptoms, allowing the mind to regain a sense of stability and control. When it comes to cravings, whether they are related to food, habits, or other impulses, the brain often misinterprets temporary discomfort or emotional need as urgency. Cravings activate reward pathways that push for immediate relief, making it difficult to pause and think clearly. Physical sensory techniques interrupt this process by creating a competing stimulus that breaks the automatic drive toward the craving. The sensation provides a momentary pause, during which the intensity of the urge can decrease. This pause is often enough to allow more conscious decision-making instead of impulsive behavior. Emotional overwhelm occurs when feelings build faster than the nervous system can process them. In these moments, people may feel flooded, unable to think clearly, or disconnected from their surroundings. Physical sensation helps anchor awareness in the body, creating a stabilizing effect. As attention moves from overwhelming emotions to concrete sensory input, emotional intensity naturally begins to soften. This does not dismiss or suppress emotions. Instead, it gives the nervous system space to process them in a more balanced way. Mental fatigue is another area where this technique proves useful. Prolonged focus, stress, or overstimulation can exhaust cognitive resources, leading to brain fog, irritability, and reduced concentration. Introducing a brief physical stimulus can refresh attention by engaging different neural pathways. The brain experiences a shift in sensory input, which can feel like a reset, helping restore alertness and mental clarity. This is particularly effective because it does not require additional mental effort when the mind is already tired. Across all these situations, the common factor is nervous system overload. Anxiety, cravings, emotional overwhelm, and mental fatigue all involve heightened or dysregulated neural activity. Physical sensory techniques offer a direct way to communicate with the nervous system, signaling that it is safe to slow down and reorganize. This communication happens faster than conscious thought, which is why many people experience noticeable relief even on the first use. Another reason this approach is widely used is its accessibility. It can be applied almost anywhere and does not depend on external validation or long preparation. This makes it a reliable tool during unexpected moments of distress or temptation. Because the body responds consistently to physical input, the results are often predictable and reassuring, which builds confidence in one's ability to cope. Over time, repeated use can strengthen emotional resilience. The nervous system learns that intense internal states are temporary and manageable. Instead of fearing anxiety or cravings, individuals begin to recognize them as signals that can be regulated. This shift in perspective reduces reactivity and increases a sense of empowerment. In essence, this technique is commonly used because it meets the nervous system where it is, by addressing anxiety, cravings, emotional overwhelm, and mental fatigue through physical sensation. It supports balance, clarity, and self-control in a practical and effective way. The cold signal travels through sensory nerves and shifts attention away from intrusive thoughts by engaging the brain's natural prioritization system. Sensory nerves in the skin are designed to detect changes in temperature and transmit this information rapidly to the central nervous system. Cold, in particular, is a strong and unmistakable signal. When these nerves are activated, they send urgent messages to the brain that demand immediate awareness. This process happens faster than conscious thinking, which is why the mind is drawn away from internal dialogue and toward the physical sensation almost instantly. Intrusive thoughts often persist because they occupy attentional space in the brain, repeatedly pulling focus back to the same ideas, images, or worries. These thoughts are not necessarily stronger than other signals. They simply dominate attention when the brain lacks competing input. Cold sensation provides a clear and powerful competing signal. As the brain processes the cold, attentional resources are reallocated from internal mental activity to external sensory awareness. This shift weakens the grip of intrusive thoughts without requiring effortful suppression or mental struggle. The pathway of this signal is important. Sensory nerves transmit information to brain regions responsible for awareness, alertness, and bodily regulation. These regions are highly responsive to physical changes because they are essential for survival. As they become active, higher-level cognitive areas involved in rumination and repetitive thinking temporarily lose dominance. The result is a mental pause, where intrusive thoughts fade into the background rather than demanding constant attention. This mechanism is particularly effective because it does not rely on reasoning or self-control, which can be difficult when intrusive thoughts are intense. Trying to argue with or force away unwanted thoughts often strengthens them by giving them more attention. In contrast, sensory input shifts attention naturally, without confrontation. The brain simply follows the strongest signal available, and cold sensation often becomes that signal. As attention moves into the body, awareness becomes more grounded in the present moment. The mind begins to notice concrete details such as temperature, pressure, and breathing. This grounding effect creates psychological distance from intrusive thoughts, allowing them to pass without escalating. Instead of being absorbed into the thought, the individual becomes an observer of both the sensation and the mental activity, which reduces emotional reactivity. Physiological changes also support this attentional shift. Cold stimulation can slow breathing and encourage deeper breaths, which further calms the nervous system. As the body settles, stress-related neural activity decreases, making intrusive thoughts less likely to reassert themselves immediately. The combined effect of sensory focus and physiological regulation creates a stable mental state where clarity is easier to access. Over time, repeated use of sensory redirection can retrain attentional habits. The brain learns that attention does not have to remain trapped in intrusive patterns and that it can be redirected safely and effectively. This builds confidence in the ability to manage unwanted thoughts without fear or resistance. Intrusive thoughts may still arise, but they are less likely to dominate awareness or trigger emotional distress. Ultimately, the power of the cold signal lies in its simplicity and immediacy. By traveling through sensory nerves and capturing attention, it provides a reliable way to disengage from intrusive thoughts and return awareness to the present. This natural shift supports mental calm, emotional balance, and a greater sense of control over one's inner experience. This method helps ground the body in the present moment using temperature awareness by directing attention away from abstract thinking and toward immediate physical experience. Grounding occurs when awareness settles on what is happening right now, rather than drifting into memories, worries, or imagined outcomes. Temperature is one of the most direct and reliable sensory inputs the body can perceive, and cold, in particular, is difficult to ignore. When the body registers a change in temperature, the mind naturally follows, anchoring awareness in the present moment. Temperature awareness works because it engages the senses in a clear and measurable way. Unlike thoughts or emotions, which can feel vague or overwhelming, physical sensation is concrete. The cold is either felt or it is not. This clarity pulls attention into the body, interrupting mental wandering and emotional spirals. As attention settles on the sensation, awareness becomes more stable, reducing the sense of being lost in thoughts or overwhelmed by internal noise. Grounding through temperature awareness also strengthens the connection between mind and body. During stress or emotional overload, people often become disconnected from physical sensations, focusing entirely on mental activity. This disconnection can intensify anxiety and make emotions feel unmanageable. By intentionally noticing temperature, the body is brought back into awareness. The mind begins to recognize bodily signals again, restoring a sense of wholeness and balance. Another important aspect of grounding is predictability. Temperature sensation follows a clear pattern: the initial cold, the body's response, and the gradual adjustment. Observing this pattern encourages mindful attention and reinforces the idea that sensations, like emotions, change over time. This realization can be calming, especially for those who feel stuck in distressing states. The body experiences the present moment not as a threat, but as something that can be observed and tolerated. Physiologically, temperature awareness influences the nervous system in ways that support grounding. Cold stimulation activates sensory pathways that promote alertness without panic. Breathing often becomes more conscious, and posture may naturally adjust as awareness shifts inward. These subtle changes signal to the brain that attention is focused and regulated, not scattered or overwhelmed. As a result, the sense of being here and now becomes stronger. Grounding through physical sensation also reduces the need to control or analyze thoughts. Instead of trying to mentally force calm, the individual allows the body to guide awareness. This reduces mental effort and makes grounding accessible even during intense emotional states. The body becomes a reliable anchor, providing stability when the mind feels unsteady. Over time, using temperature awareness as a grounding tool can increase emotional resilience. The nervous system learns that it can return to the present moment quickly and safely. This reduces fear of emotional intensity and builds confidence in self-regulation. The individual no longer needs to escape discomfort. They learn to meet it with awareness and steadiness. In everyday life, this grounding method can be especially helpful during moments of distraction, stress, or emotional reactivity. A brief focus on temperature can bring awareness back to the present without interrupting daily activities. It becomes a subtle yet powerful reminder that calm and clarity are available in the body at any moment. Ultimately, grounding through temperature awareness is effective because it is simple, immediate, and rooted in the body's natural sensory processes. By focusing on temperature, the mind is gently guided back to the present moment, where stability, awareness, and calm can naturally arise. It can lower heart rate and reduce stress hormone spikes when used correctly, because it directly influences the body's automatic regulation systems. Heart rate and stress hormones, such as cortisol and adrenaline, are controlled largely by the autonomic nervous system, which responds more to physical signals than to conscious thought. When the body is under stress, this system often remains in a heightened state, keeping the heart rate elevated and stress hormones circulating longer than necessary. Introducing a controlled physical stimulus, such as cold, gives the nervous system a clear signal to shift out of this heightened mode. When cold is applied in a calm and intentional way, sensory receptors in the skin send signals that prompt the body to reorganize its response. Rather than escalating stress, brief cold exposure encourages the body to slow down internal processes. One of the first changes many people notice is a subtle slowing of the heartbeat. This happens because the nervous system begins to favor regulatory pathways that support rest and balance. As heart rate decreases, the body interprets this as a sign of safety, which further reduces stress signaling. Stress hormone spikes often occur when the brain perceives threat or unpredictability. These hormones are useful in short bursts, but when they rise too frequently or remain elevated, they contribute to anxiety, fatigue, and poor concentration. Using cold stimulation correctly helps interrupt this pattern. The physical sensation captures attention and grounds awareness in the present moment, reducing the brain's tendency to interpret internal thoughts or emotions as threats. As perceived threat decreases, the release of stress hormones is naturally reduced. Breathing plays an important role in this process. Cold exposure often causes a brief sharpening of awareness followed by slower, deeper breathing. This breathing pattern sends calming signals through the nervous system, reinforcing heart rate reduction and signaling the body to limit further stress hormone release. Over time, the body associates this pattern with regulation rather than alarm, making the response more efficient. Correct use is essential. The goal is not to shock the body or create panic, but to apply cold briefly and with awareness. When used gently and intentionally, the sensation becomes a regulatory cue rather than a stressor. This distinction is what allows heart rate to decrease instead of increase. The body learns that it can experience strong sensation without danger, which builds trust in its own ability to self-regulate. As heart rate stabilizes and stress hormones decline, mental clarity often improves. High stress hormone levels interfere with focus, memory, and emotional control. Reducing these levels allows the brain to shift from survival-oriented processing to more balanced and reflective thinking. This is why people frequently report feeling calmer, clearer, and more centered after using the technique correctly. With repeated practice, the nervous system becomes more responsive to these calming cues. The heart rate may return to baseline more quickly after stress, and hormone spikes may become less intense overall. This does not mean stress disappears, but it does mean the body becomes better at recovering from it. Recovery speed is a key indicator of nervous system health and resilience. In everyday situations, this ability to lower heart rate and limit stress hormone surges can be especially valuable. It helps prevent minor stressors from accumulating into chronic tension and supports long-term emotional and physical well-being. By working with the body's natural regulation systems rather than against them, this method offers a practical way to support calm and balance. Ultimately, when used correctly, this approach helps the body remember how to return to equilibrium. Lowering heart rate and reducing stress hormone spikes are not forced outcomes, but natural results of giving the nervous system the right signals at the right time. The technique requires no equipment, medication, or prior training because it works with natural bodily responses that every human already possesses. The nervous system is designed to react to sensory input automatically, without the need for tools, instructions, or learned skills. This makes the method universally accessible, regardless of age, background, or experience. The body already understands how to respond to temperature, and the technique simply uses this built-in awareness in an intentional way. One of the strongest advantages of requiring no equipment is flexibility. There is no dependence on devices, apps, or special environments. The method can be used at home, at work, or during everyday situations when stress or overwhelm suddenly arises. Because nothing needs to be prepared or carried, it removes common barriers that prevent people from using stress regulation techniques consistently. The simplicity increases the likelihood that the technique will actually be used when it is needed most. Not relying on medication is another important aspect. Medications can be helpful in many situations, but they often come with side effects, timing considerations, or dependency concerns. This technique does not alter chemistry through external substances. Instead, it encourages the body to regulate itself using its own systems. By activating natural sensory and nervous pathways, it supports balance without adding anything artificial to the body. This makes it especially appealing for individuals who prefer non-pharmacological approaches to managing stress and emotional intensity. The absence of required training makes the technique immediately usable. Many stress management or mindfulness practices take time to learn and may feel inaccessible during moments of high distress. In contrast, this approach does not depend on mastering complex instructions or maintaining perfect focus. The body responds even if the mind feels distracted or overwhelmed. This reduces frustration and increases confidence, especially for people who struggle with traditional relaxation or meditation techniques. Because the technique is intuitive, it encourages self-trust. The individual does not need to wonder whether they are doing it correctly in a technical sense. Awareness of physical sensation naturally guides the process. This fosters a sense of autonomy and empowerment, as the person learns that they can influence their internal state without external support or expert supervision. Another benefit of needing no prior training is consistency. Skills that require long learning curves are often abandoned before benefits are felt. In contrast, techniques that produce noticeable effects quickly are more likely to become part of daily life. When people experience even small improvements without effort or preparation, they are more likely to repeat the practice and integrate it into their routine. This simplicity also makes the technique easy to share and teach. It can be explained quickly and understood immediately, making it useful in educational, therapeutic, or supportive settings. Because it does not depend on specialized knowledge, it can be adapted to different contexts and individual needs without losing effectiveness. Over time, using a technique that requires no external support can strengthen resilience. The nervous system learns that regulation is available at any moment, not only when conditions are ideal. This reduces feelings of helplessness during stress and builds confidence in the body's natural ability to restore balance. Ultimately, the fact that the technique requires no equipment, medication, or prior training is not a limitation but a strength. It highlights how powerful simple, body-based approaches can be. By relying on natural sensory responses, the technique remains accessible, practical, and effective, offering a reminder that regulation and calm are already built into the human system. Consistent use can improve emotional regulation and impulse control because it repeatedly trains the nervous system to pause, reset, and respond rather than react. Emotional reactions and impulses often arise automatically, driven by stress, habit, or strong internal states. When these patterns are left unchecked, the brain learns to move quickly from sensation or emotion to action without reflection. Regularly using this technique introduces a deliberate interruption in that process, teaching the nervous system that it does not need to escalate or rush into behavior. Each time the technique is used, the body experiences a controlled moment of sensory awareness that slows down emotional intensity. This creates a small but meaningful gap between feeling and action. Over time, the brain begins to recognize this gap as familiar and safe. Emotional signals are still felt, but they are less overwhelming and less likely to trigger impulsive responses. This repeated experience strengthens neural pathways associated with self-control and emotional balance. Emotional regulation improves because the nervous system becomes more efficient at returning to baseline after activation. Instead of staying stuck in heightened emotional states, the body learns to settle more quickly. This faster recovery reduces emotional buildup, which is often responsible for sudden outbursts, irritability, or emotional shutdown. With practice, emotions are processed more smoothly and with less internal resistance. Impulse control benefits in a similar way. Impulses are often fueled by urgency, discomfort, or emotional pressure. By consistently interrupting these states with physical awareness, the perceived urgency decreases. The brain learns that discomfort does not require immediate action. This realization weakens impulsive habits and increases the ability to choose responses aligned with long-term goals rather than short-term relief. Consistency also builds awareness. As the technique becomes familiar, individuals start noticing early signs of emotional or impulsive escalation. This awareness allows them to intervene sooner, before reactions become intense. Early intervention is key to regulation because it requires less effort and creates more reliable outcomes. The body responds faster because it recognizes the pattern. Another important aspect is trust in self-regulation. When people repeatedly experience that they can calm themselves without external support, confidence grows. This confidence reduces fear around strong emotions, which in turn lowers reactivity. Fear of emotions often amplifies impulsive behavior, while familiarity and trust create stability. Over time, consistent practice can reshape emotional habits. The brain becomes less reactive to triggers and more flexible in its responses. This does not eliminate emotions or impulses, but it changes the relationship with them. Emotions are experienced as signals rather than commands, and impulses are recognized as temporary rather than urgent. In daily life, improved emotional regulation and impulse control lead to better decision-making, healthier relationships, and increased resilience. Stressful situations feel more manageable, and setbacks are less likely to spiral into harmful behaviors. The individual becomes more capable of responding thoughtfully under pressure. Ultimately, consistent use of this technique reinforces the idea that emotional balance is a skill that can be trained. By repeatedly engaging the body's natural regulation systems, the nervous system learns to slow down, create space, and choose stability over reaction. Over time, this training translates into stronger emotional control and more intentional behavior. It is safe for most people when practiced for short durations because the method works with the body's natural physiological responses rather than introducing extreme stress or chemical interventions. The human nervous system is designed to respond to temperature changes and sensory input as part of normal survival mechanisms. Brief exposure to cold is well within the range of what the body can handle safely, triggering protective and regulatory responses without causing lasting harm. When the technique is practiced for only a short period, it provides enough stimulus to activate calming pathways while minimizing any potential discomfort or strain. Short-duration practice allows the body to experience the benefits of cold stimulation without overwhelming the system. Long or extreme exposure can trigger defensive stress responses, including rapid heart rate, muscle tension, or hyperventilation. However, brief exposure, typically just enough to create noticeable sensation, engages the nervous system in a controlled and manageable way. This ensures that the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes rest, recovery, and emotional regulation, can take effect without triggering the body's fight or flight mechanisms. The safety of the method is also enhanced by its simplicity. It requires no specialized equipment, training, or preparation, which reduces the risk of misuse or injury. Individuals do not need to guess about timing, intensity, or technique. The physical sensation itself naturally guides the process. By starting with short durations, people can become familiar with how their body responds and gradually adjust according to personal comfort. This reduces the likelihood of overexposure or accidental strain, making the method approachable for most adults. Short practice also supports mental and emotional safety. Sudden or intense stressors can sometimes exacerbate anxiety or panic if the body is not prepared. By keeping exposure brief, the technique provides a clear, manageable signal that interrupts stress loops without causing additional mental distress. This ensures that the method is calming rather than overwhelming, allowing the user to experience immediate relief and a sense of control. Because it is low risk, the technique can be safely integrated into daily routines. Short exposures can be used in moments of acute stress, during emotional overwhelm, or as a regular practice for maintaining calm and focus. Even when practiced multiple times a day, the brief duration ensures that the body remains within a safe physiological range, preventing cumulative strain. This makes the method practical, sustainable, and highly accessible. Another aspect of safety is adaptability. Individuals can easily modify the intensity, location, or duration of cold exposure to suit their personal comfort level. For example, holding an ice cube in the hand for 20 to 60 seconds is sufficient for most people to experience benefits. If desired, shorter or milder exposures can be used initially, ensuring safety while still activating calming responses. This flexibility allows users to respect their body's limits while gradually building tolerance and confidence. Ultimately, the method's safety lies in its alignment with natural bodily processes, its controlled application, and its adaptability. By practicing for short durations, individuals can experience the full benefits of nervous system regulation, emotional grounding, and stress reduction without risk. This makes the technique not only effective but also accessible, approachable, and reliable for most people seeking a simple, safe way to improve emotional and physiological balance. The ice cube technique supports mind-body connection through physical awareness by creating a direct link between what the body feels and how the mind responds. In daily life, the mind and body often operate on separate tracks. Thoughts, worries, and emotions dominate attention, while the body moves automatically, sometimes unnoticed. This disconnection can amplify stress, anxiety, and impulsive behavior because the brain becomes disconnected from the signals the body is constantly sending. By using a simple physical stimulus like an ice cube, the technique brings awareness to these signals, encouraging a more integrated and conscious experience of both body and mind. When an ice cube is held or applied to the skin, the cold activates sensory receptors that send immediate and powerful feedback to the brain. Unlike abstract thoughts, which the mind can easily ignore or become lost in, physical sensations are undeniable. This sensory input captures attention and grounds awareness in the present moment, which is the foundation of mind-body connection. The brain notices the body, and the body communicates to the brain in a way that cannot be overridden by rumination, stress, or distraction. This bidirectional awareness fosters a sense of unity between mental processes and physical states. Physical awareness through the ice cube technique also helps regulate internal bodily responses that influence mental states. The cold sensation can slow heart rate, encourage deeper breathing, and reduce muscle tension, all of which signal safety to the nervous system. As the body relaxes, the mind often follows. Thoughts become clearer, emotional intensity decreases, and cognitive control improves. This demonstrates how physical cues can guide mental states and reinforces the connection between the two. By observing the body's responses and noticing changes, individuals learn to understand how their physical state impacts their emotions and cognition. The technique also promotes mindfulness in a practical and accessible way. Mindfulness is essentially the awareness of present moment experience without judgment, and physical sensation is one of the most immediate ways to practice it. By focusing attention on the cold, individuals are encouraged to notice subtle details, the temperature, the pressure of the ice against the skin, and the way the body reacts. This attentional focus strengthens neural pathways that support self-awareness, regulation, and emotional clarity. The mind becomes more attuned to bodily feedback, enhancing overall mind-body integration. Over time, repeated practice of the ice cube technique can improve responsiveness to bodily signals. Individuals begin to recognize early signs of stress, tension, or emotional escalation before they become overwhelming. This heightened awareness allows for proactive regulation rather than reactive behavior. The mind and body start to work together as partners rather than operating independently, which is the essence of a strong mind-body connection. Emotional responses become more manageable. Decisions are clearer, and stress is less likely to accumulate unchecked. In addition, this method fosters a sense of embodiment, reminding individuals that mental states are inseparable from physical experience. Emotions, thoughts, and impulses often arise alongside physical sensations, and by attending to the body, the mind gains valuable information about these internal processes. The ice cube technique makes this link tangible and immediate, providing a practical tool to bridge mental awareness and physical experience. Ultimately, the ice cube technique supports the mind-body connection by using simple, intentional physical awareness to create balance, clarity, and regulation. By paying attention to how the body reacts to cold, the mind learns to recognize and respond to internal states more effectively. This fosters a harmonious interaction between mind and body, helping individuals feel grounded, centered, and in control of both their physical sensations and mental experiences. It works best when paired with slow breathing and conscious attention, because these elements amplify the body's natural response to sensory input and create a synergistic effect that enhances both physical and mental regulation. While the ice cube technique alone provides a powerful stimulus, combining it with deliberate breathing and focused awareness ensures that the nervous system responds optimally, leading to deeper calm, improved clarity, and stronger emotional control. Breathing and attention are essential components because they guide the nervous system toward parasympathetic activation, which promotes rest, recovery, and balance. When a person holds an ice cube and focuses on the cold, the body experiences an immediate sensory signal. This signal draws attention to the present moment, but pairing it with slow, deliberate breathing enhances the physiological response. Slow breathing influences heart rate variability, slows the pulse, and signals safety to the nervous system. As the parasympathetic system becomes engaged, stress hormones begin to decrease, and the body can shift from a heightened state of alertness to a calmer, more regulated state. The combination of cold sensation and controlled breathing allows the body to experience both an external anchor and an internal regulatory cue, reinforcing the overall effect of the technique. Conscious attention is equally important because it determines the quality of the sensory experience. Simply holding an ice cube without focus may produce a physical sensation, but the mind could remain distracted by worries, intrusive thoughts, or internal dialogue, which reduces the effectiveness of the technique. By directing full awareness to the cold, observing the temperature, the way it feels against the skin, and how the body reacts, the mind becomes fully present. This mindful engagement allows the nervous system to respond more efficiently, interrupting stress loops and grounding the individual in the current moment. Together, slow breathing and conscious attention enhance both physiological and psychological benefits. Physiologically, the body experiences a more pronounced reduction in heart rate, lower stress hormone activity, and decreased muscle tension. Psychologically, the mind gains clarity and focus, emotions become more manageable, and intrusive thoughts are temporarily displaced by attention to immediate sensation. The combined effect creates a feedback loop. As the body relaxes, the mind becomes calmer, and as the mind becomes calmer, the body maintains a more balanced state. Repeated practice of pairing the ice cube with slow breathing and focused attention strengthens this mind-body connection over time. The nervous system becomes more adept at self-regulation, making it easier to respond calmly to stress, cravings, or emotional overwhelm. Each session reinforces the understanding that physical sensations, when attended to consciously, can guide mental and emotional states. This builds resilience, confidence, and greater control over reactions in daily life. Additionally, conscious attention during the technique fosters mindfulness skills that transfer to other areas. By learning to notice sensations in the body without judgment and maintaining focus on a single stimulus, individuals improve their overall ability to remain present, reduce rumination, and regulate emotions. Slow breathing enhances this effect by giving the nervous system repeated cues to remain in a state of safety and equilibrium. In practical terms, pairing the ice cube technique with these elements makes it highly versatile and accessible. Even a brief session of holding the ice cube while breathing slowly and paying full attention can create noticeable relief from stress, anxiety, or mental fatigue. The mind and body work together, reinforcing regulation and building awareness, which allows the technique to be effective in almost any setting, whether at home, work, or on the go. Ultimately, the technique reaches its full potential when combined with slow breathing and conscious attention, because this combination maximizes nervous system engagement, deepens the grounding effect, and strengthens both emotional and physiological regulation. It transforms a simple sensory practice into a comprehensive tool for calm, clarity, and mind-body integration.